I want to tell you about a woman named Dorothy, 69 years old, retired pediatrician. 42 years of telling other people how to live healthfully. She had memorized every major dietary guideline published since 1980. She had helped thousands of families make better food choices. She was, by any professional standard, an expert, and Dorothy was meticulous about her own diet. She ate what she prescribed. She walked 4 miles every morning. She kept her weight exactly where she wanted it and had the blood work to prove she was trying. When Dorothy came to me, referred by a colleague after a routine cardiac screening raised an unexpected flag, I reviewed her imaging with the kind of attention I give every patient, and what I saw did not match the woman sitting across from me. Her arteries were not clean. They were not the arteries of a woman who had spent 4 decades practicing what she preached. Her coronary vessels showed significant inflammatory plaque, not the calcified, hardened kind that builds slowly over decades of obvious neglect. The soft, dangerous, rupture-prone kind. The kind I have learned, over 28 years, to associate with a specific pattern of dietary harm. Dorothy looked at the scans and said something I have never forgotten. She said, "I followed every guideline, every single one, for 40 years. And that is exactly the problem. Because the guidelines, the official, approved, widely recommended dietary guidelines, contain several foods that are presented as heart-protective choices, foods that millions of seniors eat every day with complete confidence, complete trust, and complete unawareness of what those specific foods are doing to their arterial walls. The most dangerous thing about these foods is not that they are obviously bad. It is that they are convincingly, officially, authoritatively presented as good. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share changed how I think about so-called healthy foods and arterial disease, and it might change everything for you too. I'm Dr. Soren. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon with 28 years in the operating room. I have performed over 2,500 open heart surgeries, and I have spent more time than I care to count trying to understand why patients who followed the rules, who did everything their doctors asked, still ended up on my table. I make these videos because the conversation I'm about to have with you is the one I wish I could have with every patient before they reach my operating table. Most doctors don't have time to challenge the guidelines in a 7-minute appointment. Today, I am going to do exactly that. Here is the fundamental thing to understand about food and your arteries after 60. Dietary harm to blood vessels is not linear. It is not a straight line between what you eat and what appears on a scan. It is cumulative, compounding, and the rate at which damage accumulates accelerates after 60 because your arterial repair system, the endothelium, the thin inner lining that protects your vessel walls, is operating at reduced efficiency. Think of it like paint on an old wooden fence. For years, a fresh coat every season kept the wood protected, but now the wood is older, more porous, more absorbent. The same amount of moisture that once sat on the surface now penetrates deeper. Damage that once stayed superficial now reaches the structure itself. That is your arterial wall at 65. The same food inputs that sat harmlessly on the surface of a younger arterial system now penetrate. They trigger inflammation that goes deeper, lasts longer, repairs more slowly. Studies show that adults over 65 who consume the 5 foods we are discussing today have arterial inflammatory markers an average of 72% higher than matched adults over 65 who do not, even when all other cardiovascular risk factors are identical. The food is doing something measurable, specific, trackable. Advice designed for a 40-year-old with a fully operational arterial repair system cannot be applied directly to a 68-year-old without adjustment. That distinction and what to do about it is exactly what we're covering today. Number 1. Whole wheat bread, the one food most seniors switch to specifically to protect their hearts. Here's what nobody tells you about whole wheat bread. Not white bread, not processed bread, whole wheat. The dark, dense, fiber-rich loaf you specifically chose because every piece of dietary advice you have received for 30 years told you it was the right choice for your heart. Here is what is actually happening inside your body when you eat it. Whole wheat bread contains more fiber than white bread. That part is true. But whole wheat flour is still flour. It has been milled, ground. The grain cell structure has been broken open, and the starch inside is exposed. When that exposed starch reaches your digestive system, it behaves almost identically to white flour in terms of blood glucose response. A slice of whole wheat bread has a glycemic index. That means a measure of how fast it raises blood sugar, of approximately 71. White bread is approximately 75. The difference is 4 points on a scale of 100. That barely meaningful difference in blood glucose impact does not justify the confidence with which whole wheat bread has been prescribed as a cardiovascular food for 4 decades. The repeated blood sugar spike from 2 or 3 servings of whole wheat bread daily triggers something called endothelial glycation. That means sugar molecules chemically attach to the proteins in your arterial lining, making it stiffer, less flexible, and more susceptible to plaque formation. Every day, every slice. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults over 65 consuming 3 or more servings of whole grain bread daily, not white bread, whole grain, had insulin sensitivity profiles nearly identical to those consuming white bread, with no measurable difference in arterial inflammatory markers between the two groups. The fix: replace bread of any kind with genuinely low glycemic alternatives at most meals. Use large romaine lettuce leaves as wraps. Use half an avocado mashed on a thin rice cake as a base. When bread is genuinely needed, use authentic sourdough made with whole grain rye, not wheat, where the fermentation process reduces the glycemic impact by 30 to 40% compared to standard whole wheat. Limit yourself to 1 serving per day, maximum. Number 2, smoothies, especially the green vegetable smoothies promoted as heart protective. Let me ask you something. Do you start your morning with a smoothie? Perhaps a green one, spinach, kale, some fruit, maybe some protein powder? Here's what surprises most of my patients when I explain what that smoothie is actually doing. The vegetables in your smoothie, the spinach, the kale, the cucumber, are genuinely nutritious. I am not disputing that. The problem is the fruit, and more specifically, the quantity of fruit blended and consumed in liquid form within 3 to 5 minutes. A typical fruit and vegetable smoothie contains 2 to 3 servings of fruit: banana, mango, pineapple, apple, berries, processed into liquid and stripped of the natural fiber structure that would normally slow sugar absorption. When you eat a whole banana, the fiber slows glucose entry into your bloodstream over 20 to 30 minutes. When that same banana is blended and consumed as part of a 400 ml smoothie in 4 minutes, that sugar enters your bloodstream in a single concentrated wave. The medical term is fructose bolus delivery. That means a large amount of fruit sugar delivered to your liver rapidly in a concentrated form, faster than your liver can process it cleanly. The overflow converts to triglycerides, blood fats, that circulate through your arteries and contribute to plaque formation. After 60, with liver processing speed reduced, that conversion is more pronounced, more damaging, more consistent. I have seen patients whose triglyceride levels were inexplicably elevated despite clean diets, and when I asked specifically about morning smoothies, the pattern resolved immediately. I should have been asking sooner. I ask now every time. A study published in Nutrients found that adults over 65 who consume blended fruit smoothies daily had fasting triglyceride levels averaging 19% higher than those who ate the same fruit in whole form, despite identical total caloric and sugar intake. The fix: stop blending. Eat your fruit whole. 1 piece of fruit per meal: an apple, a pear, a small bunch of grapes, half a mango. If you genuinely want a morning drink, blend only non-starchy vegetables: spinach, cucumber, celery, a small piece of ginger, half a lemon, with no fruit at all, and 300 ml of cold water. Add 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed. That combination delivers nutrition without a fructose surge. Have you been starting every morning with a smoothie, believing you were doing something good for your heart? Write it in the comments. I read every single one. Number 3, olive oil, used in quantities far beyond what is actually beneficial. Here's what the standard advice gets critically wrong about olive oil. Olive oil is genuinely heart protective. The Mediterranean diet evidence is real. Extra virgin olive oil contains oleocanthal, a natural anti-inflammatory compound, and monounsaturated fats that actively support arterial flexibility. I am not telling you to stop using it. I am telling you that the dose in the research that established olive oil's benefits was 1 to 2 tablespoons per day. Not unlimited, not drizzled generously over everything at every meal. 1 to 2 tablespoons. Because here is the part that what the brochure doesn't show you. Olive oil is calorie dense at 120 calories per tablespoon. Excess caloric intake, even from a genuinely healthy fat source, drives adipogenesis. That means the creation of new fat cells, particularly visceral fat, the fat that surrounds your organs and is directly linked to systemic arterial inflammation. Using olive oil freely because it is healthy can result in consuming 4 to 6 6 tablespoons per day without awareness. That is 480 to 720 additional calories daily. After 60, when metabolic rate has declined by 15 to 20% compared to younger adulthood, excess calories from any source, including healthy ones, accumulate as visceral fat. And visceral fat secretes inflammatory compounds called adipokines. That means chemical signals released by fat cells that directly inflame arterial walls. A study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults over 65 who consumed olive oil without measurement, relying on visual estimation of a healthy amount, consumed an average of 3.8 tablespoons per day, placing them in a caloric surplus that correlated with measurable visceral fat gain and elevated CRP, the arterial inflammation marker, within 12 months. The fix: measure your olive oil. Every time, use a measuring spoon, not a pour. 1 teaspoon for cooking eggs, 1 tablespoon for sautéing vegetables, 1 tablespoon for salad dressing. No more than 2 tablespoons total across your entire day. The health benefit is in the quality and the active compounds, not in the quantity. More is not more protective. More is inflammatory. Number 4, protein bars, eaten as a healthy snack between meals. Here's what nobody tells you about the protein bar in your kitchen drawer. Most seniors who eat protein bars are doing so specifically because they have been told protein supports heart health, muscle maintenance, and metabolic function after 60. All of that is true. The problem is not the protein. The problem is what surrounds the protein inside that bar. Read the label of any popular protein bar and you will find a list that includes sugar alcohols like maltitol, high fructose corn syrup, palm kernel oil, a saturated fat with a higher atherogenic potential than butter, artificial sweeteners, and coating compounds like hydrogenated palm oil. These ingredients serve one purpose: to make an unpalatable combination of protein powder and binding agents taste like a satisfying food. The medical term for what these compound ingredients collectively drive is postprandial oxidative stress. That means a surge in cellular damage that occurs in the 2 hours after eating, triggered by the combination of rapidly digested sugars, oxidized industrial fats, and artificial compounds, entering a bloodstream that, after 60, is less equipped to neutralize them quickly. What would I recommend for my own parent? I would tell them, throw away every protein bar in the house. Replace them with a real food snack that delivers protein without the industrial ingredients. 2 tablespoons of natural almond butter on 3 whole grain rye crackers. A hard-boiled egg with a small handful of pumpkin seeds. 100 grams of plain full-fat Greek yogurt with a small handful of raw walnuts. 30 grams of protein. No maltitol, no palm kernel oil, no arterial oxidative stress. A study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that adults over 65 who replace processed snack foods, including commercial protein bars, with whole food protein snacks reduced their postprandial oxidative stress markers by an average of 34% within 8 weeks. Number 5, farmed salmon, the fish most seniors eat specifically for heart health. Here's what surprises most of my patients most profoundly. Salmon, the fish that has been prescribed by every cardiologist, every dietitian, and every heart health organization as the single best food for cardiovascular protection. Wild salmon, genuinely. The omega-3 content is real. The anti-inflammatory benefit is established. But the salmon most people actually eat is not wild. It is farmed. And farmed salmon, which represents approximately 70% of all salmon sold in supermarkets, has a nutritional profile that is fundamentally different from its wild counterpart in one critical way. Farmed salmon is fed a diet of processed fish meal, soy, corn, and industrial feed pellets. That diet changes the fat composition of the fish's flesh. Farmed salmon contains significantly higher omega-6 fatty acids and a far less favorable omega-3 to omega-6 ratio than wild-caught salmon. The same imbalance we discussed in previous videos, the one that drives systemic inflammation, is present in the very food you are eating specifically to reduce inflammation. The omega-3 content of farmed salmon is lower. The omega-6 content is higher. The ratio that determines whether the fish is anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory tilts toward harm. And after 60, with an arterial system that is already managing elevated baseline inflammation, consuming a food that tips that balance further in the wrong direction while believing it is protective is a clinical misdirection. A study published in the journal Environmental Health Perspectives found that farmed Atlantic salmon had omega-6 to omega-3 ratios averaging 29% less favorable than wild-caught Pacific salmon, a difference significant significant enough, when consumed 3 times per week as recommended, to measurably alter blood inflammatory markers in adults over 65. The fix: look for wild caught specifically on the label, not Atlantic salmon, which is almost always farmed. Alaskan sake, Pacific coho, and Alaskan pink salmon are reliably wild caught species. If wild salmon is unavailable or outside your budget, sardines packed in olive oil, not sunflower oil, deliver wild caught omega-3s at a fraction of the price with a naturally favorable fat ratio. 2 tins per week provides equivalent cardiovascular omega-3 benefit to 3 servings of wild salmon. Let me come back to Dorothy. When I asked her to walk me through a typical week of eating, she described it precisely. Whole wheat toast every morning with a small scrape of avocado. A green smoothie, spinach, kale, banana, mango, protein powder, 3 times a week. Olive oil on everything, generously. A protein bar mid-afternoon as a clean snack. And salmon for dinner at least 3 times per week. Always from the same supermarket, always on sale, always labeled simply Atlantic salmon. 5 foods, all of them prescribed by guidelines, all of them consumed with complete confidence, all of them doing measurable damage to a 69-year-old arterial system that no longer had the resilience to absorb their specific harms. I sat with Dorothy for 40 minutes, not 7, 40. She had seen 2 previous cardiologists. Both had reviewed her diet and called it exemplary. Neither had looked closely enough at the specifics, the type of salmon, the quantity of olive oil, the fruit load in the smoothie, the ingredients panel of the protein bar. We changed 5 things. Whole wheat bread became rye sourdough, 1 slice per day. The smoothies became vegetable-only blends with flaxseed. The olive oil became 2 measured tablespoons. The protein bars were replaced with a hard-boiled egg and pumpkin seeds. The Atlantic salmon became wild-caught Alaskan sockeye, twice weekly. 16 weeks later, Dorothy's high-sensitivity CRP, her arterial inflammation marker, had dropped from 4.6 to 1.8. Her triglycerides had fallen 31%. Her cardiologist, reviewing the updated blood work, asked what medication she had changed. She told him, not medication, food. He called me to ask what I had done. I told him I had simply read the labels more carefully than the guidelines had. 4 months after our conversation, Dorothy sent me a message. She had returned to volunteering at a pediatric clinic 2 mornings per week, something she had stopped because fatigue had made it feel impossible. She wrote, I spent 40 years telling families what to eat. I needed someone to tell me what I had wrong. That is the whole truth of this video, right there. You can be educated, disciplined, and devoted to your health, and still be misled by the specific foods you trust most. Let me bring this together simply and clearly. 1. Replace whole wheat bread with authentic rye sourdough, 1 serving per day maximum, and only when genuinely necessary. 2. Stop blending fruit into smoothies. Eat fruit whole, 1 piece per meal, and blend only non-starchy vegetables if you want a morning drink. 3. Measure your olive oil every single time, and use no more than 2 tablespoons total across your entire day. 4. Remove all protein bars from your kitchen and replace them with real food snacks. Almond butter on rye crackers, a hard-boiled egg with pumpkin seeds, or plain Greek yogurt with walnuts. 5. Check the salmon label. Buy only wild-caught Pacific or Alaskan varieties, or replace with sardines and olive oil twice per week. Start tonight with the easiest check of all. Go to your refrigerator or pantry right now and look at the salmon you have. Look at the label. Does it say Atlantic? Does it say farmed? That answer costs you nothing to find, and what you do next knowing it may matter more than you realize. Your body has been working for you every single minute of your life. Give it what it needs. It will respond. If this video gave you something real, share it with someone you love. A spouse, a sibling, a friend over 60 who eats every single one of these foods faithfully every day, believing with complete sincerity that they are protecting their heart. That one share might be the most important thing you do today. And tell me in the comments, which of these 5 hit closest to home for you? Was it the whole wheat bread you switched to decades ago? The smoothie you make every morning? The salmon you buy every week because every guideline told you to? I genuinely want to know, because you have been trying to do the right thing. You deserved more specific information than the guidelines gave you. Everything I've shared today is general medical information based on published research and my clinical experience as a cardiothoracic surgeon. It is not a replacement for your personal medical care. Every person's situation is unique. Before making any changes, especially to medications or supplements, please have a full, honest conversation with your own doctor. That conversation, informed and unhurried, is exactly where good medicine begins.